So tell us a bit about your running routine and before lockdown and how it's changed since lockdown.
Since lockdown, it has changed a bit, but prior to that, I was probably running 5 or 6 times a week.
Okay.
And I would usually take a rest day, and I would also do some strength and conditioning. Because I have a family, a small family, I don't have perhaps the quality of sessions that I used to do, but I used to manage one good club session a week. And I've also been involved with, there's a little group called TLAC who meet over at the Olympic Park on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. And that works very well because that's 7 o'clock in the morning, which might not be to some people's preference, but it works very well for people who have full-time jobs and families and things. So I've been probably the last year or no, six months or so, I'd been doing that as well.
How do you think your disciplines helped you in this lockdown, or have you always been quite disciplined in running on your own?
No, that's the thing. That's why these Project Vs have been so good for me, because I need that thing. Like I was doing the TLAC sessions, which is a way. It's a bind. I've got to get up at. I've got to leave the house at 6:30. I've got to get to the Olympic Park for 7 a.m. I've got to run really hard and then go to work. It's been really hard, but that discipline has forced me to do it. Because if I didn't do it, I'm rubbish at doing interval sessions on my own. Some people are really good at them, but I'm rubbish at doing them on my own. So actually, the lockdown has brought me a bit more discipline, a bit more focus. I've actually decided to run less as well. I'm doing less running, but better quality running, I think.
About what your sessions are, and specifically what you're doing with conditioning.
So there's a guy who I used to see in person in the real world on a Friday night, and I used to do an hour of strength and conditioning with him, and he's doing some things online every day. So I do that 2 or 3 times a week, and I'm doing less running. So I only run on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and then on the weekends. So four times a week at the most. But my focus is the same route on a Tuesday and Thursday, but I'm pushing myself to run harder, to have a better quality of run. Don't just sort of plod around the same routes. So my running has got a bit more focus to it. And like I said, it's a bit more of a. I'm appreciating it's a treat, because actually I don't have much time now because we're having to look after a child. So I have to work from 7 a.m. till 2 p.m. and then I have to take over the childcare for the rest of the day. And then my wife does the same. So time is really precious now. Is even and there's people sort of sitting down and watching box sets and doing all sorts of amazing things, and actually time is the opposite, because we can't give our child to anybody for the day.
You're the box set for your child. You've got to
exactly. I'm a human box. Exactly. Yeah.
Did you do the mob match?
Yes, the current one, the Woodford Green versus Woodford Green. Yes. So I found it's quite flat where I live, and found a nice flat course and did about, I can't remember, 6 or 7 laps of that. And I was not as fast as I would be if I did perhaps the club handicap running with other people.
Yeah.
It was probably maybe a minute or so, maybe 2 minutes off of my best for the equivalent club 5 miles. But it was good fun to do it early yesterday morning and round where I live.
With races, I don't think I've ever done, I mean, maybe nobody's ever done a race apart from where it's not been the adrenaline, the people around me, and part of me is scared that I'm just going to stop.
Do you know what? That comes back to the Hobbs podcast, because I've done a couple of those Project Vs now, and it's not quite the same as running with other people, but kind of running with this kind of additional, not pressure, but persuasion, whatever, encouragement, in terms of either the podcast or knowing that you're running, in terms of this kind of virtual race. It makes you work a little bit harder than you would do.
Yeah, definitely. It's strange, the mentality that we all have is not so much, we're all doing things like live streaming, and it's not like we can see the other people that are doing it at the same time, but just knowing that other people are listening to the same podcast and going through the same experience.
Yeah, definitely. I was doing the Project V this morning, and Steve Hobbs says, I'm standing by the sign, and we're going to go and do 4 times 1 minute.
Yeah,
I did. I'm standing. Yeah. And away you go, and then you can hear his feet crunching on the same gravel that you're crunching on.
Yeah.
He did it 2 weeks ago, and I'm doing it today, but he's still there. And then I'm running along, and I can hear him breathing coming out of my phone. and there's people walking the other way wondering, because I don't have headphones. I haven't found headphones that work with my strange ears. Exactly. Yeah. So, but there's people looking at me saying, "What's that?"
That's the new normal. Just having sound. It's what they were doing in China, basically, 20 years ago. But having something that that's like an audio, like Steve's audio is 50 minutes. I'm going to turn it on, and when he tells me to go, I got to go. Rather than definitely. Just, look for this, look for that.
Yeah, exactly. I would, otherwise I would just sort of plod around or whatever. So no, I've really got a lot from that, and that comes down to the human bit, doesn't it? It's like running with somebody else. Somebody's watching you. I talked to Steve once about coaching anyway, and the key thing about coaching is you are answerable to somebody in some way. Because Steve coached me for a while, and he would look at your sessions on Strava and go, well, how did that go? And you can sort of you talk about it and all those sort of things. And I suppose this is not quite the same, but if you're listening to the podcast, it's like you're answerable to somebody. He said, like you say, go now, go hard. You should be doing this. You should be feeling this. I did the one around the Olympic Park last Sunday morning. I was desperate not to get lapped by him. Because I was just, you're running in different places. Like, well, I'm coming down the hill now, and I'm thinking, shit, I'm only going up the hill now. And I was desperate not to get lapped by him in the 12 minutes.
Still,
do you know what? It's funny because you see me at the cross countries, and I'll let you into a secret, and I wouldn't say I hate cross country, but I really don't love it at all. I'm not particularly good at it. But I go loyally, and this season I went to almost as many races as I've been to every other season. And what I enjoy is I enjoy going to the race. I enjoy the camaraderie. I love the club feeling. I love talking to people, on the tube or whatever on the way out there. The racing is great, but I don't live for it in the way that some of our athletes do. But it doesn't make it any less an event for me. And because it's important to me, I make that time. So I will like we all do, sacrifice most of our Saturday, to go and run for 40 minutes around a muddy field in zone 6 or something. The cross country is a test, isn't it? And like you say, it takes over even though you're not running in the morning, it takes over your morning because you plan your morning around it. I've got to have breakfast then, and I can't go and do this because I need to get on the train at 11:30 or whatever. So it does take. So what you don't want to do is do all of that, go to plan your whole day, and then get to the race and think, well, I wish I'd worked harder at the race. You don't want to have kind of regrets at the end of it. So
okay, next one, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be accountable to anyone who watches this, and you, of course. So we'll do the.
But more important, I'm a bit of a stuck record, I'm afraid. I'm in my 40s now, so I can start to repeat.
Good coach, you got to keep.
The most important thing, though, is you need to, in some way, be enjoying it. It mustn't be a complete slog. And yeah, I don't enjoy the actual race of cross country, but the whole process I do enjoy. If I stopped enjoying it in some way, then it's time to think about it. Because rule number one definitely is make sure you're enjoying it in some way. Maybe not at the time, but afterwards, if it makes you feel good afterwards, the endorphins and the satisfaction and all of those things, then that's good. But if you're not enjoying it in any then it's time to think about.
And after and during, and I go.
Yeah.
No, that's.
Yeah, you don't have to enjoy it 100%, but you should take in summary, you should take enjoyment from it, because otherwise it's.
Love being in mud, which I grew to love actually after.
Yeah, and love cleaning your shoes afterwards.
Yeah, I just stopped doing that actually for a while, and then realised I actually have to do that.
Oh no, you've got to do that. You can't have the shoe of shame on the next Saturday.
I realised that it wasn't okay. But Tim, you're also a really great motivator. So for we see like on WhatsApp, everyone's very positive. People but the people who are kind of maybe not as disciplined or not as committed, or thinking, oh, I'm not, this isn't working for me, lockdown. What would you like? How would you get people to kind of do more running or share experiences? How do we be more together, as it were, for not just the ones who are it's inbuilt and they're disciplined, they go out, but everyone else who might be
so it's a good question. And sometimes all the social media stuff that it gives lots, but it can also take away, it can alienate people. People can use some of the platforms for the wrong reasons, to promote themselves or whatever, and the danger is you alienate a big section of the community, and that's as much a problem in our own club as any others. and it's feedback that's come back to me before. It's like people say, well, we only talk about, you know, the racing, and we only talk about the performance and the elite runners and things, and that can be, you know, not, it's counterproductive, you know, to perhaps those who are new or whatever. And we have to be really conscious of that. We have to look out for one another. That's really important, be that virtually or be that, you know, in the real world. So we need to look out for, and I'm always banging on about it. We're blessed with some really good athletes at the sharp end, but we also have to watch out for the athletes who are new to the sport, because everybody has potential, but everybody is, you know, can be nervous and apprehensive as well. And so that's really important. So, but your question originally was, you know, what do we do for folks who are struggling? I don't have the magic answers. I would hope there's some good support networks in the club. I would hope that those people would, if they felt bewildered, would feel confident to maybe to ask. You know, we've got some great captains in the club. Don't forget, got Captain Annie and Captain Gav on the road and cross country side, and they're really good people. You know, and they're well connected. And then there's a circle of us around that as well, who've kind of been in the club for a little bit, you know, for a while now, and hopefully are able to help and offer some encouragement and things like that. It's difficult because we don't have those kind of those human interaction possibilities that you might have, say, at the club bar, or the, you know, the chat in the hall when you're warming down, and that's how you make those friends sometimes, people you never would have met otherwise in the real world, or otherwise in real life, you know, or in the change rooms or whatever, or when you're out, you know, in between reps or Project V, leaning against a post in the Olympic Park. You know, these are the kind of bonds that we form, and that's all been taken away from us, and that's really tough. And even now, I find when I'm out running, you know, runners won't even, to some extent, they don't even look at you. You know, they look away because you're more focused on, you know, trying to separate yourselves. And one of you who's going to run in the road, and who's going to run behind the trees, or whatever. So it's like this thing is trying to pull us apart. You know, we've lost our opportunity to meet. You know, we almost have lost some of the camaraderie we had on the street, and now more than ever we should be sticking together. It's really tough. I don't have instant answers, and also, of course, not everyone, you know, wants to be on social media or enjoys it, or even, you know, there are folk who don't even have smartphones or whatever, or don't have a Facebook account or whatever, and I get that. That's really tough. But hopefully there is something that's out there for you. You know, it could even be, you know, finding books that you enjoy, you know, which are about running, whatever. But above all else is relish this time that we have. You know, that at the moment, I mean, things will change in the coming weeks and months, but at the moment, the time outside that we get to go running is precious. Remember, our friends in Spain and Italy have been completely locked down, and you know, like properly. Whereas we've had it, I think, relatively easy.
Well, we have a lot of Spanish Italian members as well, and I'm sure that's one thing that they feel very privileged to be able to do.
Yeah, we do. We're very lucky to have some great members from all around the world, actually. And Gigi has been for example, and he's a real blessing, isn't he? And I saw a picture of him helping out at one of the local charities the other day. So he's clearly a man with his heart in the right place.
Yeah, and he's taking lots of photos as well, which is
he takes bloody good photos as well. Anyone would think he was a professional photographer.
He's got a very nice camera as well. Great pictures of country.
Yeah, it's great, and there's a couple of good photographers in the club, and you know, people contribute to our amazing club in all sorts of ways. You know, either behind the scenes or, you know, in a very visible way like that. And you know, there was a big period where Gigi wasn't even running. Poor chap. You know, he fell over. Poor guy.
The Christmas party, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, but it was before the Christmas party. He didn't even have alcohol on his.
I mean, it's just a shame that there's such good food at the Christmas party. I just remember like a whole salmon. Was that the Christmas party or the summer party?
Yes, there's usually a whole salmon. Yes.
We're gonna have to make up for that as soon as lockdown. You know, got to do the summer party, the beer mile, or whatever it's called, the Chunder Mile.
The Chunder Mile, yes, yeah, that's
happened
all
with
part of club legendary stuff.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to let you go, but actually one last question. Highlight of your lockdown running so far?
Highlight of my lockdown running was, undoubtedly, doing the Milestone Pursuit metric marathon, which was trying to force my tired legs into a 16-mile run, which is 26 kilometres. And I ran up to Hampstead Heath, my beloved Hampstead Heath, and then back down Parkland Walk, which is an old disused railway, and then back home. And there was blossom, and it was a beautiful day, and there were leaves on the trees, and it was peaceful, and reminded me that we are still quite lucky in this lovely city.
Better than being locked down during December, that's for sure.
Yes, that's true. It could be much, much worse. The weather could be grim. So, but it's got its own challenges. But that was my highlight. How about you? What have you had a highlight? Surely getting back to running has been a highlight.
Yeah, no.
After your stress fracture.
I mean, mileage-wise, I'm actually starting to do similar. It's just more the speed that I think it's much harder. Yeah. Even with Steve in your ear, not every session turns out as great as as the audio would like. Steve does it, but actually my highlight was last week when I bumped into Antonio and I was doing Steve's session and I was just struggling. I know that he was like, he's there, but still not the same. And Antonio was like, well, I'm going to stand here until you finish this next 2 sets. And then he was really good. And it just shows that anyone, I mean, not that anyone can be a coach, but anyone can be a motivator. And he was like, you can go faster, and really, really encouraging. And that made all the difference, because I would have just plodded through those last 2 sets probably, because they were fast. They were 200s meters and 400. And that's
it's that accountability thing, isn't it? Somebody is suddenly, it's not just you, somebody's watching you.
He just has, I mean, even if he just stood there, it would have been better than me trying to do those off. And it went, I mean, obviously this is in retrospect, but it flew by. At the time it felt like forever, but
have you been to the Tuesday Mick Kern sessions?
Yes.
And it's amazing sometimes.
Yes.
A real one. Yeah, he's not. I don't think he's doing a podcast yet.
Why not?
He ought to. Yeah, I don't know what's he doing. He needs to pull his finger out. But they're amazing. Sometimes they fly by as well, don't they? You think, oh, that was a nice session, and it's.
And you're like, I did that. Yeah, and I think that's the other thing, is looking back now at what within an hour and essentially half an hour of the main session, that what you were able to do during that with very little break. Those relays. I don't know if you did those relays with him in the summer, where you have a part.
Oh yeah, on the cinder track, and you cut across the middle. Yeah, and they're brilliant.
But that's someone blowing a whistle and you knowing that you just go when he tells you, rather than thinking. You haven't got time to think. But,
that's coaching in a nutshell, right? It's group training. Yeah, it's fantastic. So, well, we should talk again anyway.
Yes. Well, best of luck with everything, with all your running. We'll catch up soon, maybe in person.
I hope so. Fingers crossed.